So the time is winding down on the 2012 Rose Bowl, and Tom Mulhern turns to me and says, I got the final score nailed on this one. Oregon 45, Wisconsin 38. So we're going to test him out this year. It's the second year in a row we'll have predictions on our Badger Beat presentation here. Tom Oates, Tom Mulhern. I'm Adam Mertz, the Wisconsin State Journal. We have Wisconsin versus Stanford, January 1st. First, before we get to the scores, I'm going to talk about a key to the game. Tom Mulhern, what do you think is going to most define this game and the outcome?
I think anytime you're talking about Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, you got to start with the run game, and you got to start with the opposing team's ability to stop it. And normally, when you think against a Pac-12 opponent, you think of the Big Ten team, especially Wisconsin, being able to run the ball effectively and pushing them all over the field. Well, this is not a traditional Pac-12 defense for Stanford. I mean, it's a Big Ten style. When we think of Big Ten styles, the way we used to think of the Big Ten defensive-wise, and it's a defense that held Oregon to 14 points. It's a really good defense. And we've seen all ends of the spectrum with Wisconsin's run game. We've seen them twice rush for over 500 yards, and we've seen them be stopped against really good defenses. So, you know, we know that if you check the graph this year, when Wisconsin's been effective, obviously they've got to run the ball. They don't have to run for 500 yards, but that's a really good run defense, better than most Pac-12 run defenses, I think, and I think that's going to be a tall order for the Badgers.
Stanford, number 3 nationally. They've faced 3 of the 4 running backs that were in the top 2 All-American teams. Monty Ball will be the 4th. We'll see how they fare January 1st. Tom Oates, what are you looking at?
Well, I'll look at the other side of the ball, and Stanford is a power running team. If you want to see what Stanford is, flip on a Badger tape, because it's a power. They play. Their offense is predicated on running the football with power and then throwing off of that. It's very similar. It's Wisconsin's defense. We've seen it all season, has made great strides in its consistency, and in recent games, extremely consistent. Not giving up the big plays. I mean, forget the last 3 touchdowns against Nebraska. That was garbage time. And that front 7 is very good, and it's healthier than it probably has been all year, and that front 7 has to stop the running game of Stanford and force it into passing situations. And we've also seen the improvement of really all 4 guys along in the secondary.
Yes.
And I just think Wisconsin's playing very good defense, and if they show up and continue to play good defense, they could keep this a low-scoring game, which would, certainly help their chances of winning, especially given that we're not really sure which offense will show up.
Right. And to that point, you have a quarterback situation. We have Kurt Phillips, who has performed fairly well in what they've asked him to do. Joel Stave is back practicing. He's back. There's a little health there. How much do you expect to see Joel Stave, and what do you think they're going to ask Kurt Phillips to do at the Rose Bowl?
I wouldn't be surprised if Stave gets in the game. He has not been cleared yet for contact, but I think that's probably likely to happen before the game. And why wouldn't you trot him out there and give him a series and see? If you go 3 and out, maybe that's all we see of him. And if you move the ball, maybe it's something you go back to. And at least it gives Stanford something else to prepare for. But I will say, I think Phillips has gotten better in his 4 starts. I think he's making progress. I was struck when we got to watch a practice, first time up close that we've seen it since camp, how much more velocity Phillips had on his ball. And he had a hard time driving the ball, as we all saw in camp, off his back leg, obviously. He had a lot of zip on the ball. I think he's feeling a lot better physically. I think he's getting comfortable in the role, and I think he's growing in the role as well. Now, does that mean he's going to throw for 200 yards? I don't think so, but I think he's getting better.
Tom Oates, the other big issue going into this is the exodus of assistant coaches without a head coach in place early. These guys have had to make tough choices and take jobs elsewhere. They're staying through the Rose Bowl and coaching. How does that affect a team's focus? How does it affect the coach's focus?
To say that it would affect these coaches would demean their professionalism. And we've been around a lot of these coaches now for a year, some longer. It's a very professional group, and I would expect them to give 100% of their focus to this game, no matter what their job situation. We all know that they have had a tough go here. They all have to be looking for jobs at the same time they're trying to coach a football team. But they clearly relate to these players, and they're going to want to give 100% effort for these players, and they're professionals, and they're working for Barry Alvarez, and they're going to want to try to impress Barry Alvarez, because they're career football coaches. Down the line, when they apply for jobs, when the first reference on your reference line of your resume is Barry Alvarez, It carries a lot of weight in the world of college football. So I think there's a lot of reasons for these coaches to coach a really good game. And I think that's what will happen. And the players, I think, are clearly motivated by having Barry Alvarez, by being able to play a game for Barry Alvarez, the legendary Barry Alvarez in their minds, and in many other minds, I might add. But
he's got a statue.
Yeah, he's got a statue. But I just think there's a lot of reason for this team and these coaches to be very motivated for the Rose Bowl.
Let's get down to the meat of the business here. Score time. How do you see this game shaking out?
Well, sports writers love a good story, and I'm no different. And Barry Alvarez coming out of retirement to coach one game, being 3-0 in the Rose Bowl, and the chance to go 4-0 and tie Woody Hayes for the most wins in the Rose Bowl among Big Ten coaches is a great story. But I just can't go there. And the reason I can't go there is because of the Big Ten. I have no faith in the Big Ten. It's one thing for Wisconsin to whip up on a fragile, suspect Nebraska team in the Big Ten title. But we've seen the Big Ten, whenever they stepped outside of the conference this year, get exposed. And this is a good Stanford team. And as much as I would love to go there with the story, because it's a great story with Alvarez coming back, and I want to believe that story, because I want to write that story, but I just can't go there because I don't think the Big Ten's that good. And so I'm going to say Stanford 27-17.
Tom Oates.
I look at it this way. Stanford is a Big Ten team. They play like a Big Ten team. And Wisconsin has played those kinds of teams all year. I think it'll be a good close game. I think it'll be something along the lines of 27-24. Either team could win. Or do you want me?
You got to pick one. You got to pick one here.
You can't let them off with that.
We don't have a fence for you to sit on, so you're going to have to pick one.
Then I'm going on Wisconsin because I want Mully to be able to write a great story, and so I'm going to say Wisconsin 27-24.
Well, see, in there, Tom Oates takes my score, but I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to say that the Hard Luck Badgers drop one 27-24. We'll throw it in for overtime just for good measure. This one will probably sting a little bit. Thanks for joining us today. We'll have full coverage of the game through game day on madison.com and in the pages of the Wisconsin State Journal.